the Everything But Politics podcast.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Everything But Politics podcast. Got another awesome episode for you guys today with our guy, Chris Baris. Chris Baris, extremely grateful for you coming on our show, man. How are you doing?
Hey, I'm good. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm really excited to be on your podcast. So, yeah, let's get the show started.
Awesome. Well, obviously, you're a sports agent in Avalon Sports. Are you based entirely in Europe, or do you do work in the States as well?
So I'm primarily a soccer agent, so that's why most of the European soccer clubs, the big clubs in the world, are here in Europe. That's why I had to come back to Europe. But I'm kind of back and forth between Los Angeles and Europe now, just traveling a lot because that's the life of an agent, right? You got to meet the clubs, you got to meet the players, you got to sign the players. So yeah, that's why I'm here in Europe right now because a lot's going on.
Awesome. And so our connection and relationship that we've been able to build just now, it actually stemmed from your relationship with David Meltzer. We were fortunate enough to have David Meltzer on our show a few weeks back, and I've gotten involved with his community ever since and everything that comes along with it. Read a few of his books. And tell us about your relationship with David.
No, I mean, honestly, David is such an inspiration for any young up and coming man or woman who wants to make it into entrepreneurship or any kind of business at all or career. And personally, David has actually helped me and given me some connections in the soccer world, believe it or not. And today I actually had a meeting with one of those guys. So until today, since I've met David, he's only been helping me and has been a fantastic mentor.
And how did you meet David?
I met David in Los Angeles. I first met actually one of the staff that works for David. I believe it was one of his managers. I don't know if I can say here online, but yeah, I met them at some LA convention. I believe it was for NFTs or crypto or something like that. And of course, I already knew who David Meltzer was. And when we got into talks, and then he told me, "Why don't you just come on David's show?" And I was like, "Oh, shit." I would love to. So basically, that's how I got introduced to David's team, and that's how I actually met David. I was fortunate enough to, meet him multiple times. One time in his studio at the Dodger Stadium. I don't know if you guys have been there. That's amazing. Also at his Apple TV event for his series, which was also really, really cool. And of course, on Zoom calls and FaceTime calls and all kinds of business calls that we had. And up to this point where really until now, I've only been grateful to David because without him, I would have never gotten into contact with huge guys in the sports industry.
Awesome.
And how did you first get involved in sports management and becoming an agent?
I'm going to be honest with you. I never, ever, ever wanted to become a sports agent in my whole entire life. I was a professional soccer player in Europe, retired, came to LA, did the whole social media thing, acting, modeling, the typical cliche LA career lifestyle. And then one day my sister told me, who actually used to live with me back then in LA, she told me, "Hey, you were in the soccer world as a player. You know so much about soccer. You watch soccer content, news, all kinds of stuff every single day. You know so much about that domain. Why don't you just make a career out of it and just become an agent?" And I was like, "It's not for me." I was more the competitive guy who likes to actually play the sport. I was never the guy who was behind the scenes doing the contracts until it just clicked to me a few years ago where I was like, I'm getting older, I'm not actively playing. I do know sports and entertainment really well. I deal with contracts on a daily basis anyways. Why not give it a try? That's how I basically started. And a lot of other people and factors actually came into it because I'm actually signed with Adidas and I've been, pushed more and more towards the soccer world unwillingly as an influencer. And I kept meeting more and more soccer managers, famous soccer players, etc. And that's how I got back into it. I was like, well, I'm meeting all these awesome people. I'm meeting all these famous players. I'm meeting all these famous presidents and club owners, etc. I might as well just make a career out of it, right? because I'm doing this anyways. I might as well just do this instead of just, enjoying the moment.
Yeah.
And Chris, so for someone who may be listening to this, they're just learning about you and your career and your background. Why don't you walk them through what the day in the life of Chris Baris looks like?
Yeah.
Today's obviously a weekday. Like, what did your day look like today? Like, what is your typical? It's about holidays coming up, but I'm sure it might be a little awkward. But typical day, what are we looking at?
To be honest with you, I take no days off. I wake up every morning around 6 or 7 a.m. I get ready, and the first thing I do is I go to the gym. I don't even look at my phone. I don't respond to emails, anything like that. I just go to the gym because, again, mental health is super important, right? Without that, I always think strong body, strong mind, right? I can't do anything if my body's not in shape and my body and my mind is not in shape. So that's the reason why I start with the gym, just to clear out my head, come home, and that's when I start, going into my office, checking all my emails, the contracts that have to be done, all the phone calls that have to be done. And then, basically that's how I start my day. And some meetings last longer, some are shorter. It just depends whatever deal I'm working on. And then, you just get ready for food and then more meetings. My whole day just consists of meetings. You can't tell on Instagram. There you just see the flashy lifestyle, me being with famous soccer players, going to events, etc. But on a daily basis, it's kind of boring, to be honest with you. And this is the one thing I would tell to young um, up and coming entrepreneurs or whatever, to really be aware that it's not always going to be just the cool, fun aspect of life and work, right? You got to also do the other end, which is, which comes with the job, like administrative work, calls, emails, meetings, follow-ups, etc. So that's super important. Unless you're that kind of guy who can outsource that, but I'm kind of the guy who likes to read every single contract, every single email, do the calls like hands on, because I want to know what's going on.
So, Chris, the question I have for you is obviously, as a former athlete, you probably didn't know much about contract law and reading contracts prior to getting
No,
started. So, how did you, I guess, kind of make the pivot and really sit down and learn how this stuff operates?
I'm going to be 100% honest with you. The way I learned was I just went with the flow. I started talking to some players, did, of course, some research online, YouTube, Google researches, all kinds of stuff, asked other friends who are agents as well how it works, how to get started, etc. And with time, I just learned that, okay, the contracts are always the same. Yes, some players are bigger. The basically the salary changes on each contract, but the base of the contract is always the same. So once you know that and you understand the business behind it, everything else kind of just becomes routine, and you understand what you have to do and what you're supposed to aim for. So that's how I got started. Really, really had to do my research before. Understanding a contract was the most important thing, because if I can't be an agent representing any player if I don't even know what a contract is, what's in there, what kind of terms and conditions are, and basically what the contract is with the club and the player. So that's really important that you understand that, because I did meet a lot of agents along the way now over the past 2 3 years who don't know anything about it. And I was like, well, I'm new to this. And you guys have been doing this for so long and you don't even know the basics. This was crazy to me. But, again, some agents are really good at creating leads. Like they're really good at networking, and they're super like open, and they're able to have a great network, and they're not good at contracts. I'm trying to be both. I'm trying to be at the events, meeting the people, and also know my shit when it comes to contracts and everything that involves it.
And Chris, when you did play professional soccer, what team did you play for, and how did your contract look compared to the contracts you're making now?
Oh man, it was nothing compared to what I'm dealing with now. Okay, so when I started, I played for this basically this club called F91 Dudelange here in Luxembourg. Back in the day, it was the best club in the entire country. We actually went unbeaten with an unbeaten season. We're in the Hall of Fame, etc. here in Luxembourg as well. And the contracts I got were like $300 a month. That's literally what I was getting. But I was also just 16, 17 years old. So I wasn't complaining at all. But now when I really see the contracts of what these young 16, 17, 18, 19-year-olds getting, and we're talking about millions, that's a whole different ballgame. We're not talking about $300. So that's where I really started thinking, wow, nowadays there's also social media involved. I didn't have that back in the day when I played. When I was younger, yes, social media existed. You had Instagram, early stage Twitter and Snapchat, but it's nothing like it is as it is right now. Now they want to monetize your image rights, all that kind of social media stuff, sponsorships. So all of that I actually had to learn along the way. Luckily, I'm an influencer myself, and I've been an influencer since 2016, and I understand that world. So that's the reason why I'm able to connect with younger players, up and coming players, because I understand the social media aspect, and I was also a professional player myself. Yes, I wasn't like a Ronaldo or a Messi or anything like that, but I do understand the work that it takes to get to that point.
And what year did you become a sports agent?
Ooh, this was, I believe, early 2020. So it's been 3 years now, going on to four. And hopefully, if everything goes well, this is some spoilers. I was contacted by a really, really, really big soccer agency here in Europe. Really big. I'm not allowed to say who it is because I haven't signed officially yet. Um, but if that works out, I'm going to be switching from obviously Evlon, which is my own agency, to a different agency, which is way bigger. Who they make like $300 million in transfer sales a year, and they have a roster of 200 players, all making millions. So that is crazy to me because 3 years ago, I wasn't even thinking about being a soccer agent. I wasn't even thinking about like, you know, if am I able to even do this, or like I wasn't aware of the capabilities I had until I actually spoke with Dave and he told me, hey, you got to really focus because the sports and entertainment world will never die. It's entertainment in the end of the day. It can be the NBA, the NFL, soccer, it doesn't matter. Any sports and entertainment will always will will always at some point survive because people always turn on their TVs or turn on their smartphones to watch the games.
No
So
doubt.
that's something really, really valuable lesson that I learned because there's unlimited amount of money in that world because of the sponsorships, because of the owners who own it. I mean, you guys know how much NBA players and NFL players make. They're not going out of business, right? We know this. So to me, that was the most enticing point about it is that it's actually a career that I can do lifelong and keep pushing towards it. Recently, I haven't just been stuck, luckily, just with the player side. This is also another spoiler. I've also been trying to buy and sell soccer clubs, European soccer clubs. That's also one of the reasons why I'm in Europe, because the club owners and the presidents are all here. So I'm having regular meetings with them, with their lawyers, with their teams, to see if we can make a sale of a soccer club. Um, let's say, for example, a second division team here in Europe, depending which country it is, they can go for around 40 to $50 million for sale. In first division, it's 100 million and up. So to me, that was really, I was like, whoa, I can make some big commission here, not just on the player side, but also for the sale of a club.
Well, that's
Great.
special.
The thing I love
Yeah.
about your route into, the agency side of things is that back, even a decade ago, and obviously prior to that, I feel like in order to be in the position you're in, you really had to take the formal route, law
Yeah.
school, post grad, just really just like a lot of schooling, a lot of like a lot of just the way things always were. And with
Right.
social media, you're able to really, I feel you don't have to go to school. I mean, as long as you're knowledgeable and you know the information and you're able to build these relationships, really anyone can do it as long as you're willing to put the work in and be willing to learn.
Of course, and don't forget, I'm actually leveraging my social media followers, my blue check. I'm not paying for it. I've been verified for the past 3 years, so it's I have that celebrity status. That's why I'm able to leverage that to be signed by big agencies now, to work with the club presidents, to work with big players, and that's the reason why I was like, hey, why would I have all these followers and a blue check and not utilize it to actually create a career out of this? Because I'm not going to be, you know, an influencer my whole life, right? This was fun when I was in my early 20s. I'm 29 now. Next year, I'm going to be 30. So I actually want to transition into something more serious where, you can be like, oh, you can make some serious money and it's a very, very good profession to be in. So that's the reason why I chose this career path.
And in like this up and coming world of creating your own content and podcasting, especially with the podcasting, what changes have you noticed in terms of, the ability to be outspoken?
Oof. I mean, I gotta be careful what I say here.
Uh-huh.
I think it's really important to be honest, because if you don't speak it, it won't happen, right? So I actually had to say this to myself, like, okay, when I go meet these players, no matter what, level they're at, if they're up and coming or if they're top level players, I gotta be the agent, no matter what comes my way. So I got to always be outspoken towards people and also towards myself. I got to hold myself accountable as well. Because in the beginning, I wasn't sure. People were like, "Oh, he's an influencer. He's not really, a soccer agent. Is he really?" Like the players weren't sure if they could trust me or not. The more I got into the world, and the more I basically proved that, I can work with big brands like Adidas. I'm working with other brands too, but I can't say them officially because they're competitors of Adidas. But I'm in the works right now with some really big guys, and this is something that if I wasn't outspoken, if I didn't have that voice and reached out to David, this is another thing. This is another thing that a lot of young people, I believe, make mistakes. They're too prideful, or they think, oh my God, I can't ask anyone anything. I wasn't afraid. I emailed David. I was like, hey, David, I'm new to this. I have this opportunity. Is there any way you could help me? Yes or no, no problem at all. I reached out to David and he actually did have an opportunity for me. That's why I'm here in Europe to meet these guys. So, again, if you're afraid to take the first step, you'll never make it. So that's why, you know, I get it. The first step is the hardest. People won't take you serious. People won't, be nice to you, and they'll judge you by your experience, your looks, your age, whatever it is. But you just got to toughen through it. You got to go through it, and that's basically me. 3 years of just pounding on those doors day for day. I've lost $1 million deals. I can say it this year that did not go through. That's fine because now those same guys will keep working with me on the next deal. You just got to be smart. You can't burn any bridges, especially in this sports and entertainment world. Everyone knows everyone, and it's smaller than you think. It's smaller than you think. This is something I learned, and that's why I told you be careful. Don't be too outspoken out there in the world because you never know who you might encounter.
Yeah, well, and it's extremely impressive what you've done before the age of 30. So kudos to you, man.
Thank you.
Switch gears a little here and talk a little bit about your relationship with Adidas. How did you become an ambassador with Adidas, and how long ago was that?
Geez, this was 2019. This was early 2019. I was actually invited as an influencer to go play for an Adidas soccer event where just influencers would meet up and Adidas would sponsor the event and then we would play soccer. So I went there. I was like, cool, I'm getting a pair of Adidas boots. I can go play, meet some new influencers. Why not? That's basically what I was thinking. I wasn't thinking that I'm going to meet anyone there. Went there, played my game, and then I was approached by the Adidas boss from Los Angeles. Back in the day, it was some guy, and now it's a different guy. He's working for Google now. And he told me, "Hey man, I really like your look. I can't really tell if you're Hispanic or Asian or anything or European, and we really like your look. And we're actually looking for a guy like you for our next commercial for an Adidas shoe in New York." And I was like, "Sure, dude. Like, why not? I would love to be." Like, you have to remember, 2 years prior, I was a struggling actor and model doing the Nike and Puma and Adidas castings, and for 2 to 3 years straight, I wasn't getting any callbacks. Zero. I just went there as an influencer to play soccer, and I was basically, you know, recruited by the boss of Adidas. So you see how the events might turn. You never know who you're gonna meet. So that's why I'm being very careful who I meet nowadays, because you never know. So then he liked my look, he liked my Instagram, and he told me, "Hey, would you like to be an Adidas ambassador? Would you
Wow.
like to sign with Adidas?" And I was like, "Of course, yeah." So I got the contract. I actually have a contract that doesn't end, which is pretty cool. I'm not paid like Messi or any of these big guys, but I have access to their network. So that's how I was able to tie in the soccer world and the sponsorships and all that stuff on how to basically build a business around it. So this is what I did. I did the commercial. They flew me out the next week to New York. I did the whole commercial with the first Adidas recyclable shoe. There were only at 200 at the time, and I received a pair, which was super awesome. I have them on my shelf over there. And I think Willow Smith was also there presenting, so I got to meet a bunch of celebrities as well. That's how it basically started. Adidas opened up so many doors for my life. I got to meet boss from Adidas New York, Adidas Japan, Adidas Berlin. Like, they were all over the place. That's the kind of network I'm talking about. I was able to now utilize this going into my soccer agency career, where I have players now, and I'll tell them, "Hey, if you sign with me, there might be a potential that I can get you an Adidas deal, sponsorship deal," right? If you're good enough, of course, it depends on the level of the player, but that's basically what I was able to leverage on top of my social media and the brand deals and all that other stuff, which was a huge factor of why I wanted to become a soccer agent, because I had Adidas on my side.
Awesome.
Mm.
And Chris, so throughout this podcast so far, you've mentioned the word influencer a few times. I just want to
Yeah.
hear from you directly. How would you define influencer?
Geez, that's a broad term now, because you have all kinds of influencers.
And
Okay, so I mean, you have really from the spectrum of OnlyFans all the way to like live streamers. I would consider them all an umbrella of influencers, but I am a lifestyle content creator. That's how I would,
gotcha.
in two
Okay.
words, describe, in 3 words, describe an influencer. I basically post about my lifestyle, my business, and that's what the content I create right now for my age. Because I'm not gonna sit there doing silly TikTok videos and dances, because I think I'm out of that age.
And you mentioned that you've been doing this for it's not like you're new to this. You've been doing this. How did
Yeah.
you what day or what point in time you're like, you know what, I'm gonna start posting this, or look at this is a cool pic, and then like it kind of progressed and obviously became, like you said, a lifestyle.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, since day one, when I believe this was, I forgot the exact date. I don't remember the exact date, but in early COVID time, 2020, that's when I started dabbling into the soccer world, where I started doing research and like basically contacting people I know who are also agents. I actually had a lot of FaceTime with friends of mine who are actually really successful soccer agents in Germany and in other places in Europe. So, and they explained me how it works, and they all told me one thing. They're like, "You have one thing above us all. You have direct access to almost 400,000 people on your Instagram. You have even access to Adidas. Even regular influencers don't have that access. This is the perfect opportunity for you." On top of that, what a lot of people don't know about me is I speak actually 4 languages. I
What are those
speak
languages?
French, German, English, and Luxembourgish,
Wow.
and a little bit of Turkish as well. So again, this is something why I was the perfect fit for that job, even though I never wanted to be that, right? Which is really weird. And it turned out I'm really good at it.
Yeah, that's 4 languages is extremely impressive too. What was your first language? English?
Yes, my first language was English. I was actually born in Germany on a military base. And yeah, so my parents split up. Sorry, I'm getting a call. Can I just stop that real quick?
Yeah.
1 second. Did you guys hear that?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah, we're good.
Okay. Sorry, what was the question again?
Just about your background with the languages you speak. English first.
Yeah. So English, obviously, because my mom's American, American Filipino, was born on the military base, and when my parents got divorced, I moved to Luxembourg with my dad. And in Luxembourg, you actually have to, in school, know French, German, English, and Luxembourgish.
Mm.
You got to know those 4 languages, or you won't find a job, basically. So that's the reason why I know all these languages. And I'm really grateful because this is a skill not a lot of people have. I can utilize it for any career path that I want to do, basically. And that's the reason why I would highly advise anyone getting into this business to know these languages. Because imagine you meet a player that you want to sign, or a club owner or whatever, and you can't really communicate with them properly. It's not impossible to still do the deal, but it's gonna be harder. It's gonna be much easier because you're gonna be if you know these languages, you know their cultures, and you know how to talk to them. That's
Totally.
the reason why I think it's important.
Love that. And Chris, I got the most important question of this entire podcast. Saved it for
Okay.
right now. Is it obviously you're out there in Europe? Is it football or is it soccer?
It's football, man. It's football.
All right.
No, I mean, the reason why I say soccer now, this whole podcast, is because you guys are from the US. And whenever I say football to Americans, they just think about American football. But whenever I'm in Europe, it's always football,
Gotcha. Okay.
once and for all. The debate's
And-
over.
Yeah.
Good. Okay. And Chris, obviously, 2024 quickly approaching. What can we expect from Chris Baris in 2024?
Ooh, I can't say too much, as I just mentioned. Hopefully everything goes well and I'll get signed to a really big agency, which I'm in negotiations with right now. And the big one, hopefully, which is super confidential, I can't really talk about it too much, but I'm in the talks for a club sale, which is going to be the biggest deal I've ever done in my life. The
Congrats.
biggest one ever. So we'll see how it goes. I don't want to,
Yeah,
jinx it.
totally.
Chris,
Oh,
we wish you continued success, and we thank you so much for coming on the podcast today.
Thank you so much, guys. It was a pleasure.